because the next person I'm going to call up is going to tell us about how a guide dog has changed her life. Ashley Townsend is here with her guide dog, Lolly, also known as Miss Pop.
Hello, I'm Ashley Townsend. I cannot thank you all enough for that musical introduction. That was the best. Thank you all so much for having me and Lolly here with you today. We come to you all the way from Denver, Colorado, and I absolutely love being in New York. Anytime I get to be here, it's an absolute treat. And I have to tell you that we actually fought very hard to be here today. We were denied access to fly by JetBlue and had to sort of panic rebook with United. And I definitely called up Guiding Eyes for the Blind in a panic, and they were very supportive. But that's a separate speech on advocacy and access for another day. And the point being that we made it thanks to my awesome boyfriend, Matt, and United Airlines and Guiding Eyes coming to the rescue. So, surviving helps us to speak from the heart. And I am a survivor, and this speech is going to come to you a little less polished and a little more real in light of recent events. So let's do this. I am a first-time graduate of Guiding Eyes for the Blind, and Lolly here is my second guide dog. My journey to becoming a part of the Guiding Eyes family goes way back. My journey to matching with this sweet girl is really a very rich story, and I'm going to try to, consider everyone's time. And my journey with blindness goes back even further. So, if you'll bear with me, I am going to start at the beginning. I have a condition called Leber's congenital amaurosis, or LCA. I was diagnosed as an infant, and I grew up as a child with low vision. I'm the youngest of 4 children, and my siblings made sure to treat me with the utmost tough love. My family never equated blindness with fragility. In fact, I think if we equated blindness with anything, it was probably more like sheer grit. My childhood was full of playing outside in the Florida heat with friends, falling down and running into things more than your average kid, and immersing myself in musical theater. My parents always subscribed to the motto that I could do anything, I just might have to do it a little differently. And my theater family was no different. The idea was that it wasn't a matter of if I would do things, it was just a matter of how I would do things. And I am so grateful and privileged to have grown up with parents who place such value on my capability and independence. They ensured that I learned how to read Braille, hey, doing it right now, and use a cane. And they taught me how to advocate for myself and always thought outside of the box. Thank you so much, Mom and Dad. Because of you, I am living my dreams. Although I had, yes, thank you. Please clap for Clay and Sue Townsend. Although I had so much support, there was this difficult feeling of living in the in-between that I had as I gradually lost my vision. I wasn't exactly a sighted person, no matter how hard I tried to pass as one. Inevitably, there would come a moment where I would look different and I would feel deeply ashamed. I wasn't exactly a blind person. After all, I could see people's faces out of a tiny window of acuity in my right eye. I could read print under the right conditions. And at one point, I could even play Tetris. Y'all remember Tetris? Yeah, it was great. Even though my sister Emily and I have the same condition, and we could relate on many levels, I still often felt like an alien who didn't belong in either world. But to be blind is to be a phoenix, enduring, resourceful, and willing to face the fire. Because deep down, there is this knowing that we will always rise and fly again. So there is no giving up. But I needed to give up. At least, I needed to give up on pretending to be able to see. And come sophomore year of college, that's exactly what I did. I gave up on the biggest lie of my life, designed to keep everyone else comfortable but me, and I became a guide dog user. My first guide was from a different school. She was a brilliant, pixie-like little black lab girl with a heart of gold. Her name was Hera, and she opened up my world. Hera was naturally inclined as a guide, tearing up Florida State University's campus with me as I completed my bachelor's in music therapy. She was also inclined as a therapist, and she gravitated to the beautiful and deeply misunderstood children and adults that I called clients. She frequented environments such as homeless shelters, foster care group homes, and outpatient therapy for adults in recovery. And when we weren't enjoying our work adventures, her favorite place in the world was the beach. Lucky for her, she spent her whole working life in Florida. Hera's working career was remarkable, yet cut unexpectedly short. She was attacked by a dog, which traumatized her and led her to have to retire early at the age of 6. The dog attack left me with a visceral fear of dogs who made aggressive noises, and the unplanned transition was jarring for the both of us. Hera was living with post-traumatic stress, and I dedicated myself to making her retirement as enjoyable as it possibly could be. In 2016, a year after her retirement, I graduated Florida State once again, this time with a degree in social work, a master's, rather. I was bound and determined to become a licensed clinical social worker after seeing what life was like for kids growing up in the system. Between 2015 and 2020, my story took some dark and challenging turns, honestly, too many to mention in this brief amount of time. Before I tell you all about this next part of my story, I need everybody to know that I am okay. In the summer of 2018, I was raped by my neighbor. Now, everyone take a deep breath and exhale. That's my story. And I've done a lot of work in my own therapy around that chapter, and I'm here in solidarity for anyone on that journey. But that trauma colored my lens for how I saw myself in the world. I became acutely aware that through the eyes of a predator, I am a tiny, blind woman, a perfect target. And it rocked my sense of confidence and safety just existing in the world. I tried creating more palatable narratives around it, and even tried convincing myself that it never happened at all, which is a normal trauma response. But in 2019, every defense mechanism I had completely unraveled. Oh, 2019. The year started out beautiful, a new town, new apartment, and a dream job working in foster care. But just 2 months in, they informed me that they would be closing the foster care group home and shuffling all of the kids all around the state. Hera became mysteriously ill, and my apartment was infested with termites. As my dream job turned into a nightmare, my guide became progressively sicker and unable to absorb nutrients through her intestines, and my little home became completely unlivable. I moved home with my parents, who helped tremendously in showering Hera with love and the best medical care. And although her spirit was strong, her body was failing. On August 5th, 2019, my sweet Hera crossed the Rainbow Bridge at just 10 years old. I held a memorial for her at the beach, her favorite place. My friends and family came from near and far to celebrate her life and hold me up. And that's where the healing really began for me. And that is actually where I first met my partner, Matt, for the very first time. Come March of 2020, Matt and I had been talking for several months, and we had finally started spending time together. And of course, that was the very beginning of the pandemic. And my joke to my sisters was, I know the world's ending because I'm pretty sure I'm dating someone. It was strange to feel like I was finally pulling it together, or phoenixing, as I like to call it, and falling in love just as the world was falling apart. After just 5 months, Matt and I made the decision to move to Denver together. I had no orientation and mobility support because of the pandemic. And although I didn't really feel ready for a second guide dog, I began applying to schools again out of frustration and fear. After 15 months of getting nowhere with that process, someone finally recommended Guiding Eyes for the Blind to me. In November of 2021, I applied to GEB, and just 5 months later, Jesse called me from admissions announcing that they had a match for me. And all I could do was say thank you over and over again as I cried tears of joy. Because after 7 long years of being a cane user, I was finally going to be picking up a harness handle again. On May 9th, 2022, I met this sweet girl for the first time. That old familiar feeling of freedom in motion washed over me as we took our first spin with our class trainer, Shannon. After our stroll, Shannon asked me, "So, would you be okay with having another black lab girl?" I all but shouted yes. Whereas I once was worried that it might feel too close and too painful to have another black lab girl in my life, I suddenly had the feeling that my Hera Bear was hooking up a connection for me from beyond the Rainbow Bridge. The next morning, I learned her name, Lolly, or Miss Pop, as I love to call her. And they handed over the leash to me. Her trainers then had me play this phenomenal bonding game with her in a large open room. Per their instruction, I cut her off leash and started walking around. And whenever Lolly would show up at my left side unprompted, which is the heel position, a trainer would hit the clicker and I would dispense treats. Well, she quickly figured out that my left side was where the treats happened. And it wasn't long before I was running around the room, trainers shouting, "Left! Turn left!" as Lolly chased me down. We were all laughing so hard we had tears streaming. I'm telling you, this girl is the perfect combination of goofball and genius. Some aspects of training were incredibly challenging. Namely, the moment when a large Great Pyrenees lunged and growled at me and Lolly here in Mount Kisco on an outing, and the handler seemed to have very little control. Shannon held me as I lost it on the sidewalk, overcome by the fear of another dog attack. This is where Shannon and Miranda, the class directors, surrounded me with so much support. Miranda would bring in her little dog Peppa as a dog distraction. And even though I knew she was friendly, my body would react as if she were a threat when Lolly would become excited and distracted by her presence. Miranda would tell me everything the dogs were doing. She showed me how to check in with Lolly's body language by touching her calmly, how to regulate my breathing, and she even played soft massage parlor music while she bombarded me with dog distractions. I now work the Highline Trail with Lolly in Colorado, passing innumerable dog distractions, bunnies, ducks, bikers, runners, and just about anything you can imagine. And I don't get that icy hot feeling of terror in my veins anymore when a dog barks or growls at us. And we don't just walk, we run. Running with Lolly has been the most magnificent experience of trust in my life. And she's convinced me that I love running more than I actually do. Lolly loves the challenging hiking terrain of Colorado. I hold her harness in my left hand and a trekking pole in my right to give me more information about the ever-changing landscape. Sometimes it's so steep that I hand her over to Matt while I crawl on my hands and knees like a monkey. And as East Coasters, we're all still figuring that out together. She also loves sledding and chases us down the hill with gusto. She even lets us sit her on the inner tube and rides all the way down like a pro. Lolly and I recently celebrated our 1-year anniversary together, and I often think back on our graduation ceremony, meeting her puppy raisers, and seeing how elated she was to be reunited with her first family. Keeping in touch this past year with Debbie, Lisa, Jen, and Jay has been an exchange of love notes and pictures in celebration of our dear sweet Lolly Dolly. There is nothing more pure than the heart of a puppy raiser. We are also celebrating another wonderful milestone. Lolly and I were recently offered a position on the GEB Grad Council, and we are honored to be supporting fellow graduates and representing our school for a 3-year term. She is my constant reminder that I can overcome anything and find joy in the present moment. About a month ago, I was diagnosed with diabetes, which is very prevalent in my family. And I have to say this. I am not a list of diagnoses, genetic mutations, or conditions. No one is. There is no such thing as bad or defective genetics in my book. There are just people, beautiful, whole, multifaceted, complicated people, and dogs love every part of us, and they teach us to love every part of ourselves. And because of Lolly and her love, I finally found the courage to start my own practice, Phoenix Therapy LLC. Because to be blind is to be a phoenix. It means growing around our grief. It means transmuting pain and reclaiming power and joy. And thanks to all of you and your generosity, my GEB family, and my sweet Lolly, I am flying once more. Thank you.